And then there was another issue that was presented to City Council just about the week of pretty much my first council showing up coming on board here, and it was a city water system capacity assessment. There was discussion about the water availability in our community. There is an issue. There was a study, as I mentioned, as a city water systems capacity assessment that in essence said that given the number of approved projects but yet not developed, we will have an impact on our water supply or water demand. The city's water does not have an adequate capacity right now to meet the increased maximum daily demand for new development, nor does it have adequate capacity to meet the peak flow demands for water. This is projects, again, that have all been approved. So there is a finite capacity that we can serve, and that will be addressed as we go by a project basis at this point in time. From projects that had already received a can and will serve for water services and will obviously be honored. Those that did not have them or have them expired because of lack of moving forward with their project and they have turned out, they may be less fortunate to be moving forward. And so to some degree, there's a race to the finish line on certain projects, but we don't have enough water capacity right now to service everything that's been approved, let alone that has not been entitled and been before you for consideration for action. Those are things you're going to need to weigh in. What that does a little bit as well, now don't get me wrong, the city is making and looking into corrective measures. We are, the city water assessment has been prepared. We're now taking it to the next step of trying to ascertain just in fact, taking those numbers and putting into what we in essence refer to as unit equivalents to single-family homes, and there's a generation number for water use for a single-family home that can then the coefficients works its way into multifamily and public service type buildings, commercial, industry, and so on and so forth. And so we were able then to go ahead and create this kind of matrix. We can now begin to chip away and find out where we stand as we continually go down. And the goal, of course, is not to get to zero. We are now looking at projects in a different light, as opposed, typically you saw in your conditions of approval, applicants responsible for getting a can and will serve letter, and that was the condition pertinent to water. You'll see a change to that, to which projects may be clearly expressed in the conditions of approval as to what they need to do in order to come on board, whether it might be the need to contribute financially to infrastructure pertinent to water, to construct the actual facility, let's say, for example, is actually putting in a new well in the city, or upsizing pipes that would now service from that new well in the area of benefit, and figure out what that pro rata share responsibility is to that individual things. It also changes, unfortunately, CEQA. But often when a project of a certain size and type there are roughly about 40 some odd exemptions available, category exemptions as we call them, and you take often in your actions you probably approve a CAT exempt for a project. Because we are in this dilemma here, it's going to be unfortunate that we were unlikely going to be able to pass category exemptions for projects because we are unable to serve or we have this impact to the community. So that'll force projects to do more or less go to the next degree, if you will, and doing initial studies where they probably would not had to do it in the past. That's going to put a bigger burden on projects, both in time and in dollars. Now, again, as I mentioned, the city isn't, sitting on its laurels and saying, what do we do next? Certainly we have a water well going in construction as we speak. Well number 8A along with the storage tank. It will improve some of the capacity, but again, it will not make up for all that we've already approved here in the community. And then there are other plans that are being identified in a corrective action plan, both in looking at water supply and also addressing the other issue about our water quality. In essence, our water does need to be treated, as we have particular contaminants that we have to address. We do in the fashion of doing treatments, wellhead treatments, or in a form of blending our water so that we are within the state or federal guidelines. But those too take time, and to get those on board as well. But those are things that are being faced today with the city that you need to be aware of.
So just for clarification purposes, that water issue, are we saying that the fix is just new wells coming on board, or because I think this is a huge burden for development-wise, and what are we doing as a city for future development, and just making it harder on the developers coming in, or whoever wants to come in, commercial, whatever. I just think it makes it's another, tie one hand behind the back, right? Because all the materials and cost and all that stuff's already high. Now we have another set of things that the city can't really, stand out amongst its other competing cities that are not having this problem.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you've kind of hit it on the nail. So what do we, it is a big burden. The other issue that we have is that we're in a critical overdraft. Our water basin our aquifer that we're dependent upon has been identified by the state of California as a critically overdrafted basin. So putting another well isn't always the answer. Maybe one well, and maybe we now have to go into finding means to do recharge to our aquifer so that we don't have a net loss, because we are having a large loss on an annual basis that needs to be accounted for. And if we don't take the corrective actions in regards to the basin and making sure that that basin gets to a point to where it's stabilized, then, sadly to say, again, the state of California will, step in and make those corrective measures for you. And that's the last thing you want to do, again, taking away your local autonomy. And so the city is and has to look at various different actions in trying to be more conservative in its water use, and that may be in the way we deal with some of our landscaping issues. It's perhaps how we, and some of the industrial operations we have here, certainly our largest water user today is Foster Farms. Are there ways to improve their production so that they're using less of our water source? We have two basically industries in our community that, in essence, take greater than 70% of our water.
The second one's who?
The second one is the textile. Yeah. So those are your largest water consumptions in our community, which leaves a very, very small percentage when you think about it left for everybody else in kind from a residential or business aspect. And so we have to look at it from a larger aspect than just by project component.
Has the management of Foster Farms, I'm sure they're aware of the water they take from the community. Are they looking at ways already without the city forcing them? Are they doing everything they currently can?
At this point in time, I cannot answer that. I have not been engaged in that dialogue at this point. They are in part a team player in our water supply analyses for our basin, our GSA. We're looking at, because it's not just municipalities. We're having to, in the groundwater basin, we're looking at from both a municipality as well as agro and business. And so, but there are, certain certainly there are actions now that we have to abide by because of the state in actions. And it's something that, you know, our general plan is going to be looking at just the same.
I have a question, Steve. Since you brought up, Gary, the Foster Farms, do they pay a set rate or do they pay by water usage, like a homeowner? Is that known to the public?
Great question, and I don't, but I'm happy to go ahead and dig that information and report that back
Yeah, I'm
to
just
you all.
curious if they have a set rate with the city or they have to pay for what they're using. Because if they're paying for what they're using rather than if they go the other way, the city's therefore taking a beating.
Yeah, if the revenue source in comparison, yeah, and if it bulk rate, you know, because I use a volume and I've got a lesser rate to go with that charge. And I don't know at this very moment.
Yeah, and I don't know either. One other quick question then, Gary, and I forgot the terminology for, it's not a small house, but property owners with so much space in the yard can put in a